If Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre is a grand lesson in Victorian restraint, a neat moral climb to salvation, then her sister Emily's Wuthering Heights is a violent descent into the dirt. Forget the cheap perfume of Hollywood romance. This is not a love story, it is a gothic autopsy of the human animal. It is a brutal demonstration of what happens when a savage, primal passion is fed into the gears of social class, and the machinery rips it to shreds. It is a brutal demonstration of what happens when a savage, primal passion is fed into the gears of social class, and the machinery rips it to shreds. It is a brutal demonstration of what happens when a savage, primal passion is fed into the gears of social class, and the machinery rips it to shreds. And remember, this whole bloodbath didn't start with a gentleman. It began with a stray dog. When the old master Earnshaw brought a nameless, starving orphan from the slummy streets of Liverpool into Wuthering Heights, he did not just bring home a child, he introduced a curse. He named him Heathcliff, a single blunt word that served as both his first name and his last, a name stripped of lineage. He was a creature of darkness, and blank canvas of charcoal and bruised skin onto which the household projected their deepest cruelties and latent desires. To Hindley, the eldest son, Heathcliff was a usurper to be beaten into submission. But to Catherine, the master's daughter, he was the missing half of her own wild geography. Their bond was forged in the mud, on the barren, unforgiving moors, away from the watchful, suffocating eyes of the church and the servant Joseph's hellfire sermons. Catherine and Heathcliff established a sovereign nation of two. They did not love each other as civilized adults do, with polite glances and whispered promises. They existed as the same entity. They ran barefoot through the frost, shared breaths in the howling gale, and found a desperate feral peace in each other's fierce gaze. They were two halves of a single lightning strike. As Catherine would later whisper in one of the most chilling declarations in English literature, "I am Heathcliff. He's always, always in my mind, not as a pleasure any more than I am always a pleasure to myself, but as my own being." This was a love born of the earth, pure, lawless, and utterly destructive. But the earth is always conquered by the fence. The turning point of the cosmos is a boundary line, when a sudden accident forces Catherine to spend 5 weeks at Thrushcross Grange, home of the aristocratic Lintons. She crosses a threshold from which her soul can never return. Thrushcross Grange is everything Wuthering Heights is not. It is the embodiment of Victorian culture, wealth, and soft, paralyzing luxury, a world of crystal chandeliers, bloodless manners, and velvet drapes. It is a gilded cage designed specifically to tame the wild. When Catherine returns to the Heights, the wild child of the moors has vanished. In her place stands a polished lady, smelling of expensive French perfumes, her ankles restricted by heavy skirts, and her mind draped in social expectation. Heathcliff remained in the dirt. Degraded by Hindley into a common farmhand, his hands grew calloused, his skin caked in coal dust, and his mind left rotting under the weight of forced ignorance. The contrast was now fatal, a visceral wound between them. Catherine belonged to the candlelit parlor. Heathcliff belonged to the cold stables. The spiritual symmetry of their childhood was shattered by the cold reality of British currency. Then comes the night of the ultimate fracture. In the dark of the kitchen, as a violent thunderstorm gathers outside, Catherine confesses to the servant Nellie that Edgar Linton has asked for her hand. She admits, with tears of self-loathing, that she loves Heathcliff to her core, but she utters the words that will execute the destiny of 2 generations. "It would degrade me to marry Heathcliff now, so he shall never know how I love him." But the tragedy of Wuthering Heights is a tragedy of bad timing. Heathcliff, listening in the shadows of the hallway, does not stay to hear the rest of her sentence, the part where she confesses that her marriage to Linton is merely a desperate gamble. He used his wealth to lift Heathcliff out of poverty. He only hears that single killing word, degrade. Without a cry, Heathcliff vanishes into the howling storm, taking the last remnants of Catherine's humanity into the dark with him. 3 years later, Edgar Linton marries Catherine, believing his gold has successfully bought the wild heart of the moors. He is wrong. He has merely purchased the cold skin. When Heathcliff returns 3 years later, he is no longer the ragged orphan. He is wealthy, towering, and speaks with the ice-cold precision of a scholar. When Heathcliff returns 3 years later, he is no longer the ragged orphan. He is wealthy, towering, and speaks with the ice-cold precision of a scholar. But this polish is not civilization. It is armor. He has acquired the tools of the upper class for one solitary purpose: to use their own laws to tear their white marbled lives apart. But this polish is not civilization. It is armor. He has acquired the tools of the upper class for one solitary purpose: to use their own laws to tear their white marbled lives apart. His revenge is architectural, financial, and generational. His revenge is architectural, financial, and generational. His revenge is architectural, financial, and generational. First, he targets Wuthering Heights. He systematically exploits Hindley's grief and raging alcoholism, buying up his gambling debts card by card, drink by drink, until the old abuser becomes the penniless tenant, and the orphan victim becomes the absolute landlord. Next, he turns his gaze toward Thrushcross Grange. He seduces Edgar's innocent sister, Isabella, not out of a shred of passion, but out of pure, calculated malice. To him, Isabella is merely a legal proxy, a tool to inherit the Linton estate, and a blank canvas onto which he can paint his psychological torture. The resulting tension fractures Catherine's fragile mind. Caught between the bloodless, civilized world of Linton and the violent primordial orbit of Heathcliff, her body collapses under the strain of her own divided soul. The resulting tension fractures Catherine's fragile mind. Caught between the bloodless, civilized world of Linton and the violent primordial orbit of Heathcliff, her body collapses under the strain of her own divided soul. On her deathbed, there are no gentle goodbyes. There is only a mutual, agonizing haunting. Why did you betray your own heart, Cathy? You loved me. Then what right had you to leave me? Because misery and degradation and death and nothing that God or Satan could inflict would have parted us. You of your own will did it. Catherine dies giving birth to a daughter, young Cathy. And in that moment, Heathcliff utters a prayer that echoes like a curse through the rest of the novel. Catherine dies giving birth to a daughter, young Cathy. And in that moment, Heathcliff utters a prayer that echoes like a curse through the rest of the novel. Catherine dies giving birth to a daughter, young Cathy. And in that moment, Heathcliff utters a prayer that echoes like a curse through the rest of the novel. Catherine Earnshaw, may you not rest as long as I am living. You said I killed you. Haunt me then. Take any form, drive me mad. Only do not leave me in this abyss where I cannot find you. O God, it is unutterable. I cannot live without my life. I cannot live without my soul. For the next 20 years, Wuthering Heights becomes a black hole, drawing in the children of the dead to repeat the sins of the fathers. Heathcliff reigns as the absolute tyrant master of both estates. He treats Hareton, Hindley's son, with the exact same systematic degradation he suffered himself, turning a noble boy into an illiterate brute. He forces a bitter marriage between young Cathy and his own sickly, dying son, Linton Heathcliff, securing absolute legal ownership of every acre the Lintons ever owned. He has won. He has colonized his conquerors. But victory, when fueled entirely by a ghost, is a hollow feast. In the final act of his life, the grand machinery of Heathcliff's revenge begins to disintegrate from within, not because he is defeated, but because he can no longer see the physical world. He can only see her. Every stone in the gray wall, every cloud in the fractured sky, every face he looks upon reflects the phantom features of his lost Catherine. He stops eating, not because he wishes to commit suicide, but because he has forgotten how to interact with the living. He is being consumed by a ghost from the inside out. They find him dead in his old bed, his window open to the raging storm, the rain washing his cold, smiling face. Locals whisper that if you walk the moors on a winter night, you can still see two shadows running through the frozen heather, unbound by class, untamed by civilization, finally united in the quiet dirt. With the death of Heathcliff, the heavy Gothic shadow finally lifts from the valleys. The final twist of Emily Bronté's masterpiece is not total destruction, but quiet evolutionary survival. The young generation, Cathy and Hareton, do not choose the path of mutually assured destruction. Through a quiet, tender affection, they begin to heal the ancestral fractures. Hareton learns to read, Cathy learns to forgive, but their peace is built on a massive graveyard. Wuthering Heights remains a monument to the untamed, dangerous corners of the human psyche. It reminds us that while civilization may build its grand houses of silk and polished marble, the raw, bleeding soil of our primal selves will always remain just beneath the floorboards, patiently waiting for the storm to crack the foundation.